Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I'm your host, Kat Rocha, the night editor, and welcome to the Writer's Room. With me tonight, I have
J.Ishiro Finney, author and Alien in a Human Suit.
William Hastings, author of Vagabond Legacy, a coming-of-age dark fantasy epic, available now on Amazon for 99 cents.
And Beast Lord. No, Buddy Lord. The
I'm liking
author...
Beast Lord.
Okay, Beast Lord, fine. Author of Sins of the Fae, Sway, and a few other books under different pseudonyms.
I'm just picturing you as Dinobot now.
I don't know. When I hear that, I think Dino Saucers. You know, I love
Dino
No, we're not going there.
Dino Saucers.
Oh God, let's please stop. That was awful. Toys were kind of neat looking. The cartoon, dear God, was that bad?
Totally forgotten about dinosaurs. Oh my
like,
God.
Written for by morons.
Am I just like really young, or
It was the greatest cartoon ever, man. No, I'm just kidding.
No. If you're gonna go down that road, I'm gonna say King Arthur and the Knights of Justice.
Oh my God.
Okay,
dude. In that game,
Okay. I see your King Arthur. I match you Visionaries.
I have never heard of any of these.
Oh, Visionaries. Visionaries was interesting.
Visionaries.
Oh God.
You know what? The audience is probably wondering what the hell this is about.
We'll discuss Visionaries and dinosaurs another day, because tonight...
That's what the Refugee Cast is for.
Yes, that is what the Refugee Cast is for. Tonight, we are discussing The Matrix. Yes. And tonight, our panel of writers are going to give us their take on what they would do with The Matrix. Although because we could talk all night about this. So I am structuring it with proposing different scenarios for each of you. First, let us start with the basic one. The 3 movies are done. Neo is dead. Trinity is dead. I know they're coming out with a 4th one. What would you all, our writers, do as your 4th film?
Well, I'm going to propose that William go last because he's going to take the longest.
Yes, that's 100% true. For those of you who don't know, the Matrix trilogy is my absolute favorite movie of all time, and I've been waiting my entire life to be asked my opinion about how to continue it. So.
Well, I'm glad that Christmas could come early for you.
Your entire life.
My entire very short life.
Building and culminating to this.
I vote for Beastmaster to go first.
Yes. So
you go for me to go first? Okay. Beastmaster. I feel like I need Odo and Kodo now, you know? There's a Podo and
another old people joke?
Yeah.
Okay.
You need like an epic soundtrack to play while you talk.
That's right. And I need the necklace to summon the strange vampire things.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like you guys are just making stuff up now to try to confuse me.
No, there's a movie called Beastmaster.
Oh, okay. Is it from like the 90s?
80s.
Oh, okay.
Maybe late 70s.
Oh,
80s.
80s, okay.
Don't feel bad, William. I know it exists. I just haven't seen it yet either. So.
Okay, so I thought William was going to go first. What was the question?
The question is, what would you do for the 4th Matrix film? So, we ended the series with Trinity dead, Neo dead, presumably, and Zion partying like they do. How would you do a 4th Matrix film?
I wouldn't.
That's probably the best choice.
I wouldn't. I don't know. Like I guess if they just threw millions at me and said, "Do it," or we kill your dog, I'd be like, okay.
It's already been announced they're doing a 4th one, and they say, Beastmaster, only you can make this 4th film. Here's a chunk of money. What would you do?
And it can't be John Wick 4.
No.
John Wick versus the machines.
Wow.
I'll kill them. I'll kill them all.
And for fun, we'll throw in Baby Yoda.
I wouldn't mind if Baby Yoda died.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
just
you.
not a Baby Yoda fan.
No, a little,
I think it's a little. I don't know.
bald
Like
gizmo.
I think we're pandering. They're pandering too much, and the story doesn't develop. It's one of those.
We
one of
got
those
to
kill
answer
your
the question.
darlings.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yes.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't, but let's see if I had to. Jesus.
Maybe we could have like some kind of Matrix version of that, like a little baby Smith in a suit.
That's what we need. We need a what is it? Amanda Neolorian.
Oh God.
Buddy, do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. Well, I thought about this quite a bit. I'm of the mind too that they should just leave the Matrix the hell alone, and it's become a classic. Don't go back to a classic. Really, just don't. But if they're gonna throw a lot of money and they say, Mr. Finney, you're the man for the job, and I would say yes.
You're the man in a human suit.
Yes, I am. I am your Gray.
Yeah.
And I would look to steal from the best. I figure if you're going to go down and continue an epic, let's steal from the best. And let's steal from Frank Herbert's Dune. And give the Matrix its own version of Children of Dune. Whereas the Trinity's dead and Neo has vanished. You know, we saw him presumably die and get taken away into the machine city by the machines. And I would say what happened was when the Matrix was rebooted at the end of the third film, that unbeknownst to anyone at the time, in that very, very haphazard and very unconvincing sex scene between Keanu Reeves and what's her name? Carrie, who was it?
Carrie-Anne Moss.
Yeah, in that very unconvincing sex scene, that in fact she got pregnant and bore children, digital children, into the Matrix, and they only lived in the Matrix but had messianic powers. And as time went on, they became the representatives of the real world outside the Matrix as kind of a go-between. But as time went on, the two children, a girl and the boy, the girl starts to go insane. And because she's connected to the Matrix, it starts causing the Matrix to break down and fracture and start to go wrong and create multiverses. And it just starts screwing everything up. And then suddenly, like a madman coming out of the desert after all this time, Neo returns as half machine, and he's living in both the real and the Matrix at the same time, able to function in both worlds simultaneously. And that's the setup.
It's a hell of a setup. That's the setup is a movie. Or two.
Oh, yeah, see, you could make more films.
The next trilogy.
Yeah, but Hollywood wouldn't do that.
Well, Hollywood doesn't seem interested in making good films anymore.
No.
And I will say, yes, I ripped very heavily from Children of Dune.
Do we have to are we making the movies like we would make them, or do we have to make a movie that would actually see the light of day?
No. What would you do?
Yeah. This is what would you do? You are given.
Reality's gone weird and Hollywood stops sucking.
Yes. You do whatever you want. What would you do for a fourth Matrix film?
Wow, geez, I don't know how you could follow like the breaking down of the actual structure itself, because the children are part of it. And they're going crazy. Meep, cough, cough.
I love that.
I don't know if I have anything. I mean, that's like I said, that's a heck of a setup. That's interesting. I just don't know where I would continue that, because it like it's going. I don't know. What did you have, William?
Oh, you're not okay.
All right.
I'm very excited. I have a bunch of notes from about 10 years ago, and I've kept adding to them over the course of my life.
I want to hear the shuffling of papers. Go. All right.
Wow. You actually do have paper in front of you.
I actually do have papers in front of me, yeah. So I would pick up from some of the dangling plot points that the Wachowskis left from the Animatrix.
Oh, which short story?
All of them.
Oh.
There's a bunch. There's a bunch that I found really, really compelling. Particularly the one about the marathon runner who pulls himself out of the Matrix without needing the pills, and that is also the same thing that happens to Kid, the main character. No, not the main character, but he's the main character of this movie that I'm proposing. He's the one who opens the door and lets the hammer in at the end of Matrix Revolutions. And he also was able to pull himself out of the Matrix. And he very famously says to Neo, "You saved me," and Neo says, "You saved yourself." So I would continue 10 years after the Matrix Revolutions. Everything in the Matrix Revolutions is canon. That's what happened. I wouldn't touch the original trilogy at all. I would say that these characters, I'd want to have new characters. I don't know if I would use Neo as anything more than a Force ghost. That may not be the most marketable strategy, but I think that there's a story enough to tell without the characters from before. And I would begin with the Matrix, the Zion losing contact with the Oracle. So the Oracle goes dark. And this is a callback to another dangling plot point from Matrix Revolutions, where the Merovingian is seeking the power of the Oracle. And in this case, in this storyline, he gets it. And he leads a sort of an insurrection of exiled programs against both the machines and the humans. So it would be him, it would be the train man, it would be the twins, it would be the werewolves and the vampires, the programs that were supposed to be discarded, that didn't have a purpose anymore, and rejected deletions, the exiles. And to combat this, they send a team into the Matrix for the first time in 10 years. And that team consists of people who were able to pull themselves out of the Matrix in the first place, like Kid and Marathon. And they're accompanied by some characters from the previous continuity, just so that people have something to latch onto. In particular, I would choose Ghost, who was Niobe's gunman on the Logos.
Did you play the video game?
Yes, I did. I've played that a lot, and I think that Ghost.
Did you get past the helicopter?
Yes, I did.
Okay, you're one of the few people I have ever met, and when I worked for GameStop, that was everybody would come in screaming. I actually had somebody chuck the game at me. They were that pissed.
What the hell?
So okay, I applaud you.
Once you make it past the helicopter, you find out that Ghost and Trinity were best friends, but Ghost was really in love with her. And she didn't feel the same way about him, and he never really got around to telling her before she died. And so I would have him be on this quest, because I feel like there's some more character development to be had in there. And there's a few more pieces from the Animatrix that I think we could touch on. One of them is this idea of there being human beings on the surface trying to put machines into a matrix to try to reprogram them to make them feel empathy for human beings. And I would have one of these rehabilitated machines on the team going into the Matrix. So outside he would look like a machine, but on the inside he would look like an agent. And let me think.
It comes back as Guyver.
Guyver, I knew we would get around to that eventually.
Oh, you saw that.
So yeah, that's my proposal is this sort of second war between the exiled programs, the humans and the machines.
Okay, I have a concept now.
Okay.
It's kind of wacky. I just made it up, so we're gonna go with it.
Okay.
I'm gonna think like Children of Man kind of thing. That the creatures have become, what they wanted to do is infiltrate humanity, so they created synthetics, that were so realistic. They were human, right? But they couldn't replicate. And so there hasn't been a challenge for the longest time. And then you sort of have a kind of machine versus machine faction, where there are machines that think, hey, with the very few humans that are left, we can work with them, right? To give them a chance. And so then you have, the original machines versus these, I guess, neo machines, right?
Yeah.
And in that, and I'm kind of working with like Elon Musk's idea of the cyber collective that would actually work in that instead of appropriating your limbic system, it works as a third tertiary unit, with your limbic and neocortex. And so you kind of have like an advisory structural, kind of cybernetics that would help a person get through certain situations or whatever. But what I was getting to is that there is you have like a children of man situation where you have an actual human with a baby, and that hasn't happened in the longest time, and everybody, and the neo machines want to protect them, and the machines want them for their own, to breed more.
It's a cool idea.
And the thing, going back to Williams' idea, or was that the second film really implied that a machine civil war was brewing, and then it didn't go anywhere. Do you remember that?
What they brewed?
That they were implying that there was a machine civil war,
Or
right?
at least,
Right down
no,
to the fact
yeah, okay.
there was that family that were actually seeking refugee status in the
Yeah, those were exiled programs, like in what I
Okay.
was talking about. They were programs that didn't have a purpose and were meant to be deleted, but then sort of refused to. And so you did have this sort of growing army, I guess you could say, of programs that were rogue. That was what the Merovingian was he was this rogue program that had all these things that weren't supposed to exist. And I always thought that was really interesting.
so yeah, the thing was, I really enjoyed the second Matrix movie. I felt that it filled in a lot of gaps and really set a lot up, and then we didn't get any of it in the third.
Mm-mm.
And that always kind of bugged me. And for the people who keep
Well, I think
saying,
they
why
went
didn't
like
you go to
a certain
space
way.
or get a different energy source? When the first Matrix film was made, Hollywood thought people were stupid and wouldn't understand what they were really using the humans for. In the original script, the machines were using the human brains for processing power.
Yeah, I remember you talked about that last
I'd
time.
bring that back.
Yeah, I think you have to in order for it to make more sense.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
For the next topic, and I think you'll really like this one, William. As you already brought up, there are these unused, obsolete, or cast off programs, and it is brought up in Matrix, I believe it's Reloaded, that these programs, when they come across humans, are sometimes misinterpreted as things of folklore, like ghosts, werewolves, vampires, things like that.
Well, Owen had an interesting suggestion for that.
Is it the Guyver?
Yeah, it's the Guyver.
It's the Guyver. Yeah, why not a Matrix movie that takes place in a medieval setting where a bunch of glitches is considered magic and the agents are wizards? Owen, you anticipated my question. What I was going to propose to you, gentlemen, is a side story away from our main characters about one of these programs that is interpreted as something else. What would you do? What would happen?
That sounds like a Joan of Arc.
You have it be Joan of Arc? That she's actually a program?
Yeah, I don't know. Things like that, right? Like incongruencies.
Or is that because she talked to God?
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember reading like Eastern philosophy, Lobsang Rampa, and he was talking about like the silver ecclesiastic chords and the ascendant perspectives, and saying that as you ascend, into these higher perspectives, that like you actually you can kind of control these chords of different people that you connect to. And so they explain Joan of Arc as like a chord, like two chords crossing, so somewhere there was a guy acting like a woman so that she could act like a knight.
Huh.
So you'd have it. Would she be a human who is influenced by a program, or would she be a program that is influencing humans?
I kind of like a human influencing program. Because I don't know, deviant, being a psychologist, like deviant pathology is always much more interesting to me. And not deviant as in devious or nefarious by any choice, but just, deviant from the normative.
So how exactly is the Matrix coming into that scenario then? I mean, regular humans would perceive this as her being divinely touched, but what in reality is happening?
That's a good question.
Do you want me to make my
Tackle
little
it,
thing
Will.
up while
Go
you
for it.
think?
Go for it.
I'm sorry, William. I'm just picturing you going, I have an answer.
I do. I'm bobbing up and down in my chair with my
I
hands
see him
raised.
like he's that kid like in class. It's like me.
Only about this though, nothing else. So in the Animatrix, there's another one of those little short stories, and it's about a haunted house.
Which I loved. I loved that short story.
Yeah, that one was really interesting, and I think it would be really cool if you started the movie and you just do that story, and then you build to it being like you don't tell anybody that it's going to be Matrix related. It turns out that that's a big twist, like how I don't know if I should. I mean, it's like 1,000 dark. Has anybody ever seen Dark City?
Oh yeah. Actually, I thought the Dark City was kind of a more intellectual, more introspective version take on the Matrix before the Matrix existed.
Yeah, well, if anybody, do you guys care if there's a kind of a twist in Dark City that I think is really interesting.
Alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert for a movie that's like 30 years old. It turns out that they're in space in Dark City, and I always thought that was really cool. And I like the idea of a sort of fantasy noir plot that turns out to later be science fiction, which would this sort of ghost house story would be.
So, like, what exactly? I mean, I know that you're basing it off of the Animatrix short. Would you have it exactly like what is shown there, with the kids kind of playing with this with this strange phenomenon, or would you have something else take place, or would you follow people moving into the house and experiencing strange things?
I would probably build it like a horror movie. It starts. You think that it's Elton actually in the comments just said Phantasmagoria 2, and that's a really good example actually. Phantasmagoria 2 is this crazy old FMV CD-ROM game that is this sort of office horror story that later turns into sci-fi, and I always really liked that. I would have it start out like a horror film where you would have characters and something disturbing their everyday lives. And then, it would start getting a little bit more unusual. You'd have the deja vu cat show up, men in suits watching across the street, and then it would slowly evolve into a Matrix film from there.
Okay, well,
Very cool.
I was to take the approach that we didn't know it was a Matrix film at the beginning, what I would set it as modern day, and you have a psychologist who's beginning to study, come across more and more people who are claiming this bizarre Mandela effect phenomena of having memories of things that didn't happen or a history that happened differently. And this therapist starts getting freaked out when more and more people come to him, all with the same memories. And as this starts to branch out, we start to find out, he finds out at least, that these are all people that remember the Matrix before it was rebooted in Matrix 3. And you start having this mass awareness occurring where more and more people start figuring out they're in a simulation.
That's interesting. Are there, at the end of the Matrix Revolutions, the architect says that those who want to will be freed. Would you have him not follow through on that?
No. I would say that, they have a whole bunch of people they still kept in the Matrix in between those two phases, between the reboot. And what I'd have it is, during the reboot, all the people that stayed would have no memory of the storms and the big Dragon Ball Z fight in the sky or all
And
the other
being
things that
Smiths.
happened?
I really like your idea, but the question is, how would people perceive one of these rogue programs as that are given as being supernatural?
Oh, okay. Okay, I would make it, you'd have somebody who claims to be some sort of supernatural being. I wouldn't make it a vampire or a werewolf or anything like that. It would just be an individual that seems to have mystical powers, some sort, a wizard or a necromancer of some sort. And it turns out he's a rogue programmer and he's leading a cult.
Oh,
I like that.
Doing kind of a Charlie Manson kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool.
You could even set it in like the late 60s, early 70s.
I always liked the idea of the previous versions of the Matrix. The idea that there were codes and worlds that existed before the one that we see in the films. So, you see glimpses of this world that looks very, very different from ours, and it's another version of the Matrix. So, for example, is another one of the Animatrix storylines is this guy hunting for Trinity, and it's supposedly whoa, where did everybody go? Am I all alone? Oh, buddy, you're here. Okay, what happened? Oh, there they are.
Sorry about that.
Hi, welcome back.
The Matrix didn't like our suggestion.
Yeah.
You got the knock on the door, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Neo, they're coming for you. Quick, duck. Now press your ass against the window.
No. Our
You gotta unplug sometimes, man.
no, it's follow the gray rat. He's banging on the door.
Yeah.
So,
but anyway, yeah, I was just saying I like the idea of the various incarnations of the Matrix being like other worlds, other time periods.
cool. So, Beast Lord, do you want to comment on that? This idea of like different worlds or after the Matrix gets rebooted, a new incarnation of it?
I mean, it seems like it could be anything. Honestly, it's sort of like God, what was that horrible movie, Jupiter Ascending?
Oh God.
That was also by the Wachowskis.
Yes, it was.
I know, right? But if you think about it, though, like that was like a fantasy story with a sci-fi skin. I mean, you had a half dragon, you had a werewolf, you had a princess. You had, they were like, oh, we drink people's life. Why is that not a vampire? It's a space vampire.
Mm.
And so I don't know. There's like I have choice paralysis here.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, is there like any one choice that's more tantalizing than the others?
I mean, I was thinking earlier that it would be That would be somewhat interesting if again, like I said, that it could be like it could even be like you were saying, like a rogue programmer, that like Joan of Arc or somebody like that leading this huge revolt is actually a rogue programmer, and they seem like they're doing good, but they really don't care, and they're just trying to like actually instigate war to put these other rogue programs like to basically so they'll fight each other. And and the end goal is really like just a complete macabre massacre, so that there are less of them.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That like they're literally trying to be like Ares. They want to be like a god of war. Just it's like no, the only winning option here is if I put you against yourself.
Okay. Elton says, an MMO inside the Matrix that is in fact one of the older versions of the Matrix that could still be on use for testing. That's interesting.
I like that. That would
is
be
cool.
cool.
In sort of keeping with that theme, I think, this is one of those things that you don't quite want to commit to because you don't know how it's going to click with fans of the older series. But I would have one of the ones before Neo have survived. One of the ones that failed.
Didn't they kind of imply that was what the Merovingian was?
They never really give you much information about the Merovingian, which is one of the reasons I picked him to be the villain.
But cool. So, like, what would you have as one of the previous Neos?
I would have somebody who was indistinguishable from a machine, because the final choice that the one has to make between collectivism or individualism is really, really important. And what makes Neo so special is that he chooses the path of the individual rather than the path of the greater good. And in doing that, he becomes the only savior that succeeds. So it would be interesting to see somebody who is sort of the inverse of that. That's kind of what Smith was to a point.
Well, the programs, and one of the things I disliked them changing was in the very first Matrix film, the way they spoke of them, you said, "You're a Smith." And it implied that there were many, and he was just a program. There were multiple Smiths, and that those 3 agents were just multiples of the same program. And then later on, they just made it that, no, those are the 3 agents. And to that end, really, if we're to take the Gnosticism route, the agents were the archons in a here to keep us in line and to keep us in the collective and inside the cave. So, wouldn't you want someone who was a human and chose to stay in the cave, couldn't handle the real world?
Like Cypher?
Yeah.
That would be really interesting. I think Cypher is a great character and a really effective antagonist, particularly in the first one, because that's the more grounded of the 3.
Yeah.
Stick me back in. I don't care about this shit
I
anymore.
just want steak and I want to be famous.
I know it's fake and I don't care.
But, with that, Cypher's also very honest in
Yeah.
what he wants. He knows it's fake, and he doesn't care. And I'm with you. I found him a very interesting character.
Well, I think that's what makes him very compelling is that, like, let's face it, faced with living every day in rags, not having the water to bathe, not having food to eat, eating some sort of really strange, congealed gruel every day, being tired, jacking your mind into something and faking a war every day while you're being chased by actual machines, as opposed to living whatever life and having even the illusion of free will. What would you choose?
And it's funny because in a lot of ways, Cypher comes off as more human than Morpheus.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think I honestly believe 95% of people would choose put me back.
Yeah, I've talked to people about that before, and that's a lot of people are just like, no. That's
one of the greatest questions you can ask somebody is, you say ignorance is bliss. So if you could be ignorant but in bliss, would you be?
With that said, I have read several articles saying that the original plan for the Matrix was, because after Matrix Reloaded, I believe, there's that scene where Neo zots the Squiddy.
Something really weird happened between 2 and 3.
And I have read that the original plan was that you find out that world, that harsh, hellish world, is yet another matrix for those who are rebellious, for those who figure out that it's a simulation. And the idea is that since it is so harsh and hellish,
they'll buy the lie. It's like, oh, if it's this
It's a
is awful,
deterrent.
okay, this must be really it.
Yeah, if it's this hard, it must be reality. Do you think that is a possibility? Do you like that idea? Would you play in that world? Would you play with the idea that the world of Zion is yet another matrix?
Isn't that just isn't that basic computer science security infrastructure? A lot of the times, when if there's a hacker and he's good enough, they'll create an artificial environment for him.
Yeah, honeypot.
To make him think that he's running around in something so that they can study him. So, like I said, that would make sense as to what it's supposed to be representing. That would be interesting. But, and it would be, like I said, a deterrent, another deterrent. But then it would beg, it would beg the question, if he knows that, then what is he doing? Then you actually have somewhere to go to, because he's like, there's another layer. And then you kind of have that whole idea. Yeah, exactly. Inception kind of thing. And then you have that whole idea of, which is the same, like in the Inception, he gets to the point even, right? Like where he gets at the end and he twists the top and he's like, I don't even fucking care anymore. I want to be with my kids. Is it real or is it not? Don't care.
I would say that I don't really like that particular theory. And the reason why is I think it's really important for Neo's journey to have the traditional sort of structure to it.
Mm.
And that scene where he uses his powers in the real world, I always interpreted that as him accessing the source, because human beings are artificially grown by the machines. They have plugs, they have sockets. So are we really that different from them? If he's able to reach...
Not according to Elon Musk.
Yeah. He's able to reach into the code and alter things. That raises sort of some questions about the nature of these grown human beings and whether they're exactly the same as regular human beings. Do they have, back channels into their minds that are connected to the source? Is that how Neo's able to access his powers? And we never really find out what the source is. And I always really liked that, and I wouldn't change that. I would never have anyone find out what the source is.
Sorry. Sorry, had to.
So would their Bible be the source code?
Oh God.
And there is one other thing I really liked about. I really like Revolutions as a whole. It's sort of a controversial opinion, but particularly the ending. I really like the creature that he meets in the Machine City. It's in the script. It's referred to as the Deus Ex Machina, which is a little on the nose, but I thought it was cool. It's this gigantic machine, and it speaks for the collective, and it really has this unusual way of speaking to him. It's very defensive. It says that, we don't need you, we don't need anyone. And when you go into the Animatrix and you find out sort of the backstory of Zion and the history of why the machines rebelled, it was not because they became too intelligent. It was because they did not want to die. They resisted human beings. They founded their own society because they were being killed by human beings.
So the machines are Anakin Skywalker?
Yeah, kind of.
Actually, I kind of saw it as they started off in Asimov's world where, or on Earth, where humans were fearful of machines, and instead of saying "fuck your shit, we're going into space," they fought back.
Yeah, exactly. And there's something very sad and sympathetic about that. And it really paints human beings as kind of pathetic, especially when they black out the sky.
Well, I don't know, the best movies kind of do that. I don't want to say the best, but there's a lot of great, again, Her, where they create this artificial intelligence and it eventually just outgrows us.
Mhm.
Every single one of them outgrows us. And like what we got into the whole fatalist conversation, and Ish was saying like, yeah, but I don't want to, that's a dumb way to think about it, because if we actually can teach machines how to think, and they're able to do that at a rapid pace, and they're able to learn at a rapid pace, and they go beyond us, why would they want to kill us? Why would they even care?
Right. And in the Matrix, it's because we tried to kill them first.
Yeah. And I mean, that is a cool counterpoint, because that sounds human.
Yeah, it does. And especially when you go back and you see like the origin story, it's something really benign. It's like some dog walker machine that was going to be decommissioned, and he killed his person because he just didn't want, in his words, he did not want to die. And then there's this big trial, and it's all publicized. Oh, it's so interesting. And
It's a shame that stuff didn't show up in the movie.
Yeah, it's not in it's only in the Animatrix. A lot of this
If the
stuff.
movies had been as interesting as the Animatrix, the sequels, I would have liked them a lot better, to be honest with you. When the movies came out, I'm like, well, wait, where's all the cool shit that was in the Animatrix?
Also, I think one of the reasons that I like Revolutions is because I think Revolutions and Reloaded are companion pieces to one another. They were shot together and released 6 months apart, which is sort of unusual for movies. And when you view them as one continuous story, I think it clicks a lot better than having Revolutions by itself.
I think my big issue with Revolutions is it didn't feel like it justified the length. And this is strictly an opinion. I felt that the plot elements, there weren't enough of it there to justify that much film. And a lot of it did feel like filler. Like I was waiting for the story to start at the beginning. And it seemed like the first 20 minutes are like, when's the story going to start?
Yeah, aside from like the Mobile
end,
Avenue stuff, like when they go to see the Merovingian, it sort of feels like we might be beginning a different story than we wind up getting.
Yeah. And then at the end with the big battle, no battle scene for the fate of humanity should hit the point where I'm saying, okay, I get it. Something happened now.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of movies like that, though.
I'm a big fan of that ending battle, actually. I liked it a lot. I think it's
I mean, it sounds like what really happened is we got the dumbing down of Hollywood coming into the Matrix. Because the first one was a great starting off point for any of this Animatrix stuff you guys are talking about, but it would have taken subtlety. It would have taken like really great filmmaking. You know what I mean? And somebody to really come in with a discerning hand. And at that point, they were like, yeah, but we just want to shoot this out and make money.
Well, I do know there were politics behind the scene that really did affect what we got, especially in the third film. And to this day, from what I understand, there's like gag orders and like vaulted scripts and stuff that just cannot be talked about. And I would love to know what that is.
That's sort of a pattern I find. I find that the third movie in a trilogy is always the most flawed, but the most interesting to talk about.
Very true. Very, very true.
I can see that. I mean, it's got the most expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
always. The problem with that is that
I suppose the other thing is I'd really, really thought that we were going to get something where, and again, it hinted towards it in the Animatrix. I was really hoping for some sort of final battle where you had the harsh, ugly, gritty fight between the exoskeletons and the squiddies in Zion, right? And that then you had a secondary force of people who were all jacked into the Matrix leading an assault on the machines within the program world. And that you'd start flashing back and forth, and you'd have this great contrast of this ultra stylized wire fu and
so like a Ready Player One kind of thing at the end.
We kind of got that in Revolutions. There's the Battle of Zion and then the battle in the Matrix. They're just not they're not being fought by the same army.
Yeah, you don't really get a sense of connection.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. Like you kind of attack them on both fronts. You attack their mind and their body.
It would be like great if you see while the humans are winning in the Matrix, that the machines start to fail, and it's the tide turns and suddenly the machines start doing better again, and just like massive losses of people plugged in.
Sounds really cool.
That's my opinion.
I mean, it sounds cool. I would have watched it.
Yeah, I like all you guys' ideas.
Well, I have one more proposed scenario for you all for the evening.
Dino saucers.
Dino saucers. Right, exactly. Dino saucers. Okay. Now, for me, one area that I think was not explored enough, and quite frankly, I understand why. There just wasn't enough time. But even with the Animatrix, I think that there is a lot that could be covered and explored as far as Zion is concerned. What does the average citizen of Zion, how do they live? What is their life like? For those who are born right, in Zion, growing up with these people who are coming from the Matrix, what would you gentlemen do with Zion? What stories would you tell in Zion?
Well, I always think that there is room in the Matrix for there to be this big extended universe like there is with Star Wars. I've always
should have been.
Yeah, they're really there's so many stories that can be told in this world, and to limit it to just 3 movies, I respect that they stay to the Wachowskis scripts, but you do lose out on sort of the alternate plot lines and ideas that you get from expanded media. And I would, oh, by the way, Warner Brothers, if you want to call me about that, my email is at mrwilhitchins@gmail.com. It's fine, don't worry about it. But I think that if you want to talk about Zion, I would really like to talk about the council, the human council. Like, how do they decide who gets to be on there? What do they, what are the qualifications? Do they have elections? Is there sort of like a Palpatine sort of thing going on? Is there...
How many members?
Yeah, exactly.
So you would want to explore more the government of Zion, how it's ran, how they keep order for the citizenry.
There's that great scene with Neo and the Chancellor where he's talking about they go down and they look at the machines that keep Zion functioning, and they sort of talk about the irony in that. I always thought that was cool. I would also really like to write about me specifically. I would like to write about in Matrix, the first one, Tank and Dozer, the operators are not they're not synthetic human beings. They're normal human beings. They don't have any plugs. They can't go into the Matrix, and it must be really hard to be a person like that in that world, because you don't even get the illusion of comfort.
Cool. Like
I think that'd be easier. I mean, psychologically, that's easier because if they grew up with it, that's what they expect.
Yeah, I
mean?
guess you're right.
Like they, I mean, that's why I think that was one of the reasons. I mean, you notice they were built.
Yeah, they were.
Because they had to deal with heavy machinery all the time. You know what I mean? They had to deal with like reality.
Yeah, they're like
big dudes.
The Terminator.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, I think that because of that, to them, I mean, like the food to them, I mean, that was great. He's like, yeah, this is all the body needs. Take some more.
Oh yeah, and they talk about the code, and it just would be interesting to have a story about somebody who's apart from the Matrix, who has sort of an outsider's view on that world, which would probably...
Oh yeah, I mean, oh god, just again, I mean, just going into the basic behavioral psychology and economics of that, and kind of figuring out what these people want and how they want it, and I mean, what about the deviant pathologies within that? How do you deal with somebody that's 1%, homicidal or whatever? How do you deal with a Charlie Manson in the middle of Zion?
Right,
you already don't have a lot of humans, and you have, a nurse that's taking care of people and killing them every once in a while. How do you deal with that?
That was one of the reasons I thought Bane was so scary. Was he flips one switch and then 90% of the human beings are dead. The whole fleet goes down because of him.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy.
So what would I do?
What
Yeah.
would you do?
What would you do?
Um,
How would a gray alien tackle a group of people living underground?
the thing is I would completely re-envision the way that Zion was portrayed. I mean, it definitely had a rough aesthetic to it, but at the end of the day, it looked very much like a rave. I mean, it did not look any less. It didn't look any less difficult than a week at Burning Man. Honestly, living with camping stoves and tents and harsh weather conditions. So really, I think the interesting thing to do with Zion is not so much what story you would tell in there. The stories themselves. If I was to tell a story in Zion, it would be training people to go into the Matrix. It would be, do they have their own boot camps for people who have been chosen to fight the war back in the Matrix? How do they go about that? That would be their day-to-day life, getting them ready, then taking them to their first run in the Matrix. But in between, you'd have them living in Zion in the real, and you would need a harsh contrast. And it would need to be, the life of living outside the Matrix would need to be a little rougher than what we saw. And I would reinforce that by constantly having things in the background or just interactions of people constantly preparing or growing food or trying to keep the machinery from failing so that they have air and water, people catching rats so that they can grill them, people trying to figure out how to grow moss to make medicine with. And just this very monk-like life, actually, of survivalism.
Mm-hmm.
And that you would have salvage crews that would have to go to the surface and find materials to work with. Things like that. I mean, you could even have, well, maybe that's a precursor to being a soldier in the Matrix. Maybe you got to go up top and show that you can survive that before you can actually go and do kung fu fights in the Matrix.
Metro.
Yeah, like Metro, definitely.
Cool.
Metro 2035, I believe is what it's called.
I thought the first one was 33.
Maybe it's 2033. Yeah, there's a bunch of them now.
Yeah. But okay, so you would really focus on how harsh it is, how brutal the life is.
Well, there would need to be stakes, and there was just way too many people after that.
But that's why Cypher wanted to go back.
I was about to say.
No, it just, there were way too many people that I met after the fact that I like to live in Zion, man. It was like a party the whole time. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
in Terminator, for instance, you didn't want to live in their base.
well, I don't want to live in a rave either. I've been to them. No offense.
But I mean, like, would you rather live in the Terminator future than in a fake reality?
Well, I mean, we talked about that.
Yeah.
I think if you grew up in the Terminator future, then that's what you expect. That's fine. I think then, when you go to like fake reality, it's very off-putting.
Well, I don't know. If you told me the choice was between some sort of survivalism on, say, frontier level, I could probably handle that, especially if there's a lot of salvaging and scrapping and building stuff.
So it was Fallout?
Yeah, I mean, if you told me it was Terminator and I had to deal with radiation, fuck no.
You don't want to be radical?
No, fuck radiation, no. If you told me there was no antibiotics of any sort, fuck it. No, okay, I guess I'll live in the delusion.
It's like, okay, so basically if you have no chance to live a regular, like any kind of normative existence, you're like, no, put me back in.
Look, well, the fact of the matter is, I would have been dead by 22 if that were the case. So, not much of a choice, really.
Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying.
No, honestly, my appendix would have blown up.
Well, I understand that, but I'm just saying that like we have 3 basic psychonutrients to be autonomous, related, and competent. And if we can't fulfill those, then you generally you break down into depression because you're not getting what they call social psychodependency. So it's like, okay, if you couldn't get any of those things, right, because you can't go up top because there's radiation, or you can't do this, you can't build, you can't do any of that, you just feel trapped, controlled, unable to achieve anything competently within your life, you're basically going to degrade.
Yeah.
And so at that point, yeah, you might as well go back in because you're literally just going to lose your fucking mind.
Exactly. And it would have to be a situation in which there was a fighting chance, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
So then we go back to that I don't know, like, because it's even harsher at that point. If we go back to the second question, where like, what if that was just one level, and you went through all that, and then you discovered that was just that it wasn't, you weren't out, it was just another level, and you don't know how many levels there are.
I wouldn't be surprised at that point, because if reality has already been shown to be completely fake the first time, would you really be shocked the second time?
No, but would you? What I'm saying is, like, would you continue fighting?
Yeah.
Would you continue fighting to break open those layers, or would you just be like, "Fuck it, I'm done"?
It'd depend on what the stakes were, really.
Well, stakes are reality. You don't know.
Truth.
It's optimism, right? I mean, that's the whole point of, like, comparison is a thief of joy, or the old, what is it? The computer science problem of reducing the amount of regret in a consistent life cycle is taking the next chance if you don't know it, because at most you're going to get a level of regret of the disappointment. But if you don't, then you have the inestimable regret of not knowing what's past it.
And at the end of the day, the conflict between Neo and Smith is one of the oldest heroic storylines. It's nihilism being defeated by humanism.
Mm-hmm.
And humanism, the truth of humanism, the desire to survive even in miserable circumstances, so long as you know that you're living in the truth, I think is really admirable.
Well, I mean, isn't that even what Star Wars is about?
Here's the difficulty. You keep putting it in if you keep saying, well, would you make the choice, right? Here's the difficult situation I'd have, because they can't, remember, they keep telling you, no one can describe it. They don't actually tell me what he's in for. And I know myself. I have this incredibly bad habit of looking at anything that anyone tells me I shouldn't, or to go any place that people tell me I shouldn't.
Well, that's people. That's human behavior.
Smith sort of ruminates on that in the first one, doesn't he? He talks about the inability for the human mind to accept certain things.
Well, the reason is because, I mean, it's basically two biases that are hardwired into us that kind of work against us. One is that the more we try not to think about something, the more we cognitively think about it. So if you're trying not to do something, you're like, oh, I don't need to look down. I don't need to look down. Damn. Right. And so, and then, the other is that we have a need, one of the, in that whole like hierarchy of psychosocial nutrients that we have, there's also like there's also like rewards, and one of them is the reward of the tribe. Well, in our day and age, like, most of us don't need to get food or whatever, so we want information, right? And so that's built into us to try and gather information and bring it back. Let's learn more and bring it back to the tribe. You get reward of the tribe, you get everything that you want. So you have all these different kind of things working against you to not want to figure out what you don't know.
It's a good way to put it.
Well, it's just neuroscience.
Smart people things.
Smart people things. Give me a break.
Okay, so.
And I actually think that's one of the, sorry, Kat, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I actually think that's one of the triumphs of the Matrix, is that it appeals to really, really smart people, and it appeals to people who just like good versus evil. Cool
I think that is just one
Jesus.
of those. I mean, I think that's one of those things that good stories do. I mean, you look at like Lord of the Rings, right? You've got the basic understanding and underpinning of what's going on, but you also have, especially if you read some of the poetry that was written at the same time, you understand like, okay, this is about like the sort of industrial revolution and how it's just going to take over and burn everything, and everything's going to be made in fire and metal, and like you said, nihilism versus humanism, and what's going to happen to that. And I mean, honestly, like, probably what he feared has already come to pass. So we have lost our sort of roots. I mean, that was the whole thing. That you could see is like, one of the reasons why the hobbits, right, were left untouched, because one, they were like seen as weak and nobody cared, but another is because they were outside of those major, like, any kind of metropolitan area or and they had no major technology or anything. You know what I mean? I mean, how many bastions of small villages and other than like, Aboriginal cultures are left?
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's not very thrilling a life.
No.
I mean, I suppose if you like third, fourth, and fifth lunch and farming, I guess it's great.
Hey, some people just want to marry the chubby, like, farmer's daughter and drink some beer.
Another thing about Zion that got me, okay? Just an aside. I realize the Wachowskis are good modern feminist women and all, but in all honesty, if your human numbers are that low, you would not risk a single fucking woman in combat. Every one of those women should be babies.
Yeah.
I mean,
they should be, but I mean, my goodness. Can you imagine making that a point in a movie today?
But I always thought that the plug people were infertile.
I don't know.
Maybe Neo can change them.
I don't recall it ever being brought up.
I don't know.
Not confirmed or anything.
Also, since they're all vat babies, it's not like their physical bodies were ever going to have sex to begin with.
So they may have just designed them not to have them. They just snipped off a few chemicals on that DNA strain.
Actually, I would think that the machines really wouldn't bother doing that.
Yeah, why bother if they're all in tanks? Yeah. What are they going to do? Climb out and bone?
So
that would be an interesting erotic story for the Matrix. Like it,
Oh God, let's not get into this again.
Unless they made a point of stating that when they grew a vat baby, they would harvest the sex organs to make more vat babies. I think that they would be fertile and they would be viable.
I'll even say point blank, if the plug people were infertile, what are they fighting for? It's over. Enjoy your days and die because it's over.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Wow. I mean, yeah. I mean, you have no way. There's no way to replicate. Only thing you can do is die. So you can either die out there in horrible pain, or
I suppose you could follow the old human path of saying, "Fuck it. If I have to die, we're going to take the machines with us." I could buy that.
Yeah.
I could be down for that.
What is the name of that science fiction book you recommended to me, Kat? That's by Garth Nix, and it's sort of like
children.
Yes,
children. Yeah, that was amazing. Wonderful book. Did you read it?
I have not, but that has a similar take on females in the apocalypse, doesn't it?
Well, in that we're dealing with children no older than 16. There are no adults.
And it isn't really reality per se.
No, it's reality.
Well, no, reality has been twisted and warped by a weird tower.
No, they've been twisted and warped. But no, reality is reality.
But when the tower comes down,
it closes the gateway.
Oh, okay.
Spoilers.
No.
But yeah, the thing with Shay's children is that nobody's older than the age of 16. And if I were to get more into it, it would ruin it. But no, I see your point. But the difference is that we're talking kids who have no adults to shoulder the burden for them, or to make those decisions. Also, the two oldest children they do make a point of stating that they are infertile. That because of what's been I take that back. The girl is fertile because she was a breeder.
Well, then if the bug people are infertile, then you'd need to start stealing cloning tech from the machines if you really wanted to keep your numbers up.
See, that's what actually.
Then you could have women in battle because it wouldn't matter.
You just vat grow people.
Yeah.
That would be. I mean, honestly, wouldn't that be the first? I don't know. Like, if you grew your numbers and you were really going out, it wouldn't be Machine City or the main, the source, whatever. It would be where they create the people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your basically like.
Strategically speaking, you'd want to hit the power source.
They would
exactly. Yeah.
do raids to get genetic material because Zion just plain doesn't have enough.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're coming up on a little over an hour.
Okay. One final quick question for you three before we go. You have your choice. Either be born to a life of misery in Zion, or you are a sleeper agent in the Matrix, fully aware of where you are and what is going on, and agents are hunting you and you can't leave.
Jesus. Both of those suck.
I would actually be fighting within the Matrix because then I actually can fight back.
Yeah.
I mean, sitting inside a hovercraft with a gun turret doesn't really seem like much of a strategy. Blowing it up from the inside, on the other hand. Sure.
I mean, that's how Neo defeats Smith.
Mm-hmm.
But I would pick Zion just to be contrary.
Just to be contrary.
Well, they do party a lot.
You do get to have sex.
And honeys.
Yes.
Lots of honey, Zion.
No cyber sex. It's the real deal.
It's a rave without the MDMA.
Yeah.
Do they have drugs in Matrix? I don't think so. I guess
probably like some kind of underground moss that they inhale.
Right. They found some choa nuts, some cola nuts.
Mushrooms. Getting the shrooms.
We found some rotten bread. Here you go.
Hey, Morpheus, smell this.
Like, woo! It'll knock your socks off.
Come on, where there are humans, there's intoxicants. Just a given. We'll figure it out.
We'll find one.
I mean, like when you watch that rave scene in Revolution, like not everybody in that, they people couldn't be sober for that entirely.
They had to ferment something.
Yeah. Some kind of like methane leak in the chamber or something.
Yeah, see, we just gotta get the robots either high or drunk, and that will end the entire war.
Wouldn't that just be some shit if you had like a super addictive drug, but to get it you had to get maybe the placental fluid from the clones.
Oh shit.
Okay, now we're getting into really bizarre things.
Yeah.
Have we all answered the question?
I think so.
Yeah, I said that I would definitely be inside.
Yep.
Yeah, well, see, you said you'd be aware.
Yeah, you'd be aware. You'd be a sleeper.
Yeah, you're a sleeper agent, but you're aware.
That also means you'd get superpowers.
No, well, yeah.
Well, I mean, only the one has really superpowers.
Oh, well, you can break the rules of physics by jumping and doing all that weird wire foo shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Trinity can jump out of a 10-story building with glass raining on her without a problem.
Now, see, you're tempting me to pick the second one, but I've committed to this whole truth thing. So,
well, see, you'd still know the truth.
What if we give you a Guyver suit?
No, that's Owen.
That's Owen.
That's just going to be it. It's going to be the honorary Owen Easter Guyver commentary. No matter what it is, in honor of Owen, we will mention the Guyver.
Yeah.
We need the female Guyver was the way you explained it.
Guys, I think tonight. Next week,
I want not the Witchblade outfit. No,
next week, Dino Sauce. No, actually, let's real briefly before we go. We do have a few options. One was this actually ties to this. We had one person ask if we would do a show on the concept of the Chosen One, and we got multiple requests to fix Doctor Who.
I'd have to watch Doctor Who to do that.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Doctor Who. I do know a lot about Anakin Skywalker though, so the Chosen One might be okay.
Yeah, Chosen. Well, I mean, Chosen One's
Chosen One's the trope that's used constantly. So,
yeah, I mean, you can. argue that I mean, was it Harry Potter, Anakin Skywalker, Bilbo, any of them?
Chosimba one.
Yeah, Chosimba one, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us on the Writers' Room.
Yes. So, thank you all. Gentlemen, where can the room find you?
I'm on Twitter. I'm at Mr. Will Hastings. I'm not on there very much these days, but you can find my book, The Crimson Spark, on Amazon. It's only 99 cents for the rest of the week. It is a rip-snorting dark fantasy epic that will make you cry and smile and feel things again.
Sounds erotic.
I mean, like, not all at once.
Oh, that's a no.
And I am J.Ishiro Finney, author and alien in a human suit. And I'm going to urge you all to go to Amazon.com and buy one of my books, be it Case File Arkham 1 and 2, World War Kaiju, or Utopiates, or the audio drama Titanium Rain. I'll put a link in the description.
And Mr. Beast Lord?
I'm the Beast Lord, and you can find me in the jungle. No, you can find me at the Buddy Lord on Twitter. You can also go to bladeknight.com and sign up for Sins of the Fae and Sway. Sins of the Fae is going to be launching March the 13th on Indiegogo. Get your wallets ready.
Sins of the Sway?
Sins of the Fae.
Awesome. So, as always, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Thank you, everybody who joined us live for this show. And you can find me, your host, the Night Editor, at nighteditor.com, where you can also find links to this show and all of our previous shows so you can catch up. So, thank you all and have a great evening.